Hello everyone. We are going to continue see some example of for loop and working on the nested for loop. Okay, so let's say we want to show the growth of an investment. So how do we do that? Let's say the rate of interest is 5, and as a floating number we should have 0. And then our initial balance is equal to, let's say, 10,000, right? And we are going to ask the number of years for the investment. So this is the input to ask the number of years for the investment. Okay, so how do we do that? Do you remember input? We use input function, and now I'm going to get input, enter number of years. Okay, so the number of years is going to be an integer, right? And here we are going to say, now let's begin. The balance is equal to initial balance, and then we say for year in the range of 1 to the number of years, but because we know the number of years is going to be excluded, we are going to add it to 1. This one is being excluded, so add 1. Okay, so what this one is going to do, this one is going to create a list of numbers from 1 to the number of years plus 1, and then year is like I in this boundary, in this interval. So now I'm going to create interest. Interest is going to be balance multiply the rate of interest divided by 100. So the percentage, right? And then now I'm going to update the balance. Balance is equal to whatever we had in the account plus the interest, right? Update the balance. And then what we are going to do, going to print. So let's make it fancy. Okay, D for integer, then percent 10.2 and float, and then we are going to use percent, and then we are going to print the year and the balance for that year. Okay, let's see what happens. So I'm going to invest 5 years. It says the first year this much is going to be balanced, this much the next year, this much for each year. It's going to print out the balance for us. So let's say I want to print out the interest rate also, interest itself. So I need to add another floating here and 5. So now we'll see that we have the interest and we have the year, we have interest and balance all together. Okay, so this was the just simple example of for loop. And now we are going to talk about nested for loop. So what we do in nested for loop, for previous for loop you saw, we were always using just one value. For example, here for year in this range, right? So sometimes we can make it like two-dimensional and say for I in a certain age range and for J in a certain range, do print, for example, something. Let's say I have two lists. One is the colors, and the colors are, let's say, blue, red, purple, and yellow, and black. So this is the list of color for me. And then let's have the list of name. So my name, Sarah's name, Derek's name, Sam's name. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more name. Apple's name. So we have names, we have colors. So let's see what I'm going to do. I say for I in color, for J in names, print this, print I and J. So I is the color, right? Belongs to J. So let's see what happens. Okay, so the color blue, this is the starting point for I, right? Belongs to Andishe, and this is the starting point for J, right? So as we see, for the first I in this list, it goes through the first J in this list, and then it's going to print out them, right? And then now, still we are talking about the first I, blue, right? But we are going to finish all the J because J is under this for loop. So when we start with initial point of I, we must go through all the J. Then we will go to the next I. So for the first I, we are going to look into all the items in list J. That's why we have repeated for all the name in list J, right? So still we are in I equals 0, which is blue, and then we are going through the J1, J0, J1, J2, J3, J4, right? So we will complete this. Now this is the turn of the next I. Now we stay here until we finish all the items in list J, and then go through the next one, and then finish all the J, go through the next I, finish all the J, go to the last I and finish all the items in list J. So as you see, if we have a nested loop, we start one item and then we will go through all the items in the next nested loop, or the list that we are working on in the nested loop, in the subset loop. And then we will go to the next one. We will go to the next one. So this is the nested loop. Let's have another example. So this is kind of simpler example. For I in the range 4 or 5. So what this means I can be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? And then for J in range I plus 1. So whatever I is, this is going to increment one more. So if I is 0, then it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? J is the increment of the I at this point. Then what we are going to do, we are going to print star, and then we are going to end with empty. And then for this for loop, we are going to print nothing, right? Okay. So what end does here, let me explain here. So end at this point, end equal nothing, will append empty, or if I had a space, it would append the space, right? Instead of the default, which is new line. So let's see what happens here now. So when I is from range 0 to 5, then J is going to go through the range one more than I, right? 0 to 1 more than I, correct? And then it's going to print a star, end with nothing, and then it's going to the next J, and then next J, next J. So every time it's going to be more than whatever I is. So that's why we have 1, and then we have 2, and then we have 3. So this is I equal 1, I equal 2, I equal 0, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? For all the, oh, actually this one excluded, 5 is excluded, remember. Okay, so this is the example for another nested loop. And shall we print I and J here? Print, it will be funny, but let's do this, why not? I plus str I plus J plus str J. Now it's funny. So it's not going to have the star anymore. I mean, this the way it should be. So now it's just printing INJ, INJ, and it's not printing a star in an order that should be, right? But this gives you a clue how INJ is moving. Actually, if I put this here, will make more sense. Let me, oh, no. This one is not going to print out the, what is that number? Okay, so I will show you later when I have the appropriate example. Okay, so another example. So we have an example now. This will be a nested for loop to display multiplication tables for let's say 1 to 10. So we are going to say for I in range 1 to 11, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, right? And then now for j in range 1 to 11. So what we are going to do, we are going to have k equal I multiplies to j, and then we are going to print k I don't want to just print k, so I want to print I, j, and k. So how do we do this? We're going to make a parenthesis for this, percentage here, and then here we are going to have another parenthesis. So we are going to say percent 10.2. Actually, these are all integer. D and this one and this one. Let's see. Okay, so now it's correct. Okay, so as we see, we have ij and k, which is a multiplication. 1 multiply 1 is 1, 1 multiply 2 is 2, and let's check this one. 1 multiply 10 is 10, 2 multiply 10 is 20, and we have 10 multiply 10. So this is the multiplication table using the for loop. So what it does, again, like before we saw in the first examples, so first it will stay in the I equal 1 and then go through all the j, and then it will go through I2 and then all the j, and so on until we have all the I with the subset j. Okay, so this is the other example of nested loop. So now I have a participation point question for you. So this one, what output does this for loop generate? So we have for j in range of 10, 16, 3, don't forget the comma, and then we are going to print %d, and then j, then end equal empty. So give me the answer for this one, and also explain, for example, comment this as well. Comment this, what is the range, and comment, for example, what n does and what is the output for this whole program. Okay, so that was the for loop, nested for loop for this lecture. We'll see you in the next lecture. Take care of yourself and let me know if you have any questions.